The streets of Free City are very much a world that feel a little bit like our own, but way better.
What movie magic transformed Ryan Reynolds into Dude? Free City is more like CGI City. Nothing in this world is possible without some incredible VFX.
Ryan Reynolds in this new improved body.
Originally, Dude was meant to look exactly like Guy, with Ryan Reynolds pulling double duty as both characters. But instead of taking the time to shoot Ryan acting twice and buff him up later in post-production, the crew decided to find a very beefy actor who could portray him instead. Aaron Reed was the chosen one.
Not true, I gained 312 pounds for this film.
Reed was shot using motion capture. Notice all those dots on his face? And in post-production, Lola VFX stitched Reynolds' face onto Reed's body, like a real-life Frankenstein situation.
He's spectacular!
For the fight with Dude, the team used wires, props, and mats to get the action just right. The scene definitely took some great fight choreography, and an amazing stunt team to pull it off. Also, many of the iconic props, like the Captain America shield, were filmed with plain-looking stand-in props, and then updated later with CGI.
That was dope.
Lots of stunt performers and VFX were involved with the fight scene that happened when Guy and Molotov Girl head to the stash house to retrieve her stolen code. The scene involved spawn points, tons of weapons, and video game fighting styles. Behind the scenes, people were being thrown onto mats while attached to wires, and performers were pretending to be hit by numerous projectiles and weapons. To get the motorcycle slide just right, Guy's bike was pulled forward with wires, and Ryan Reynolds' stunt double stepped in to do most of the dangerous stuff. It all comes together to create a perfectly chaotic scene, where players appear out of nowhere for an all-out brawl. And honestly, it looks like a pretty fun, albeit exhausting, day to have been on set.
Was that cool? It felt really cool.
A lot of the movie's most dangerous scenes were done as practical stunts with CGI added later. For the complicated construction site chase, it took a lot of planning, trained stunt performers, and VFX to get things right. Many of these injuries, like Guy's head becoming a little too friendly with a concrete pillar, are only possible in a video game and would surely send you to the hospital, or worse, in real life. To create this scene of Guy falling and landing in the bubble suit, the filmmakers used a stunt performer on wires, positioned against a green screen for close shots, and a digi-double version of Ryan Reynolds for the wide shots and extreme bounces. Once on the ground, Ryan was really filmed in a prop bubble, which was either really comfortable or really uncomfortable. We're not sure, but someone's gotta ask him.
And that was the heartbreaking story of Blue Shirt Guy.
Real cars were used on the streets of Free City, but they had a CGI layover put on top of them to make them look more unique, video game worthy, and futuristic. The movie director, Sean Levy, said,
We want the world of our city filled with vehicles that aren't just everyday. We want them in models and customized editions and colors that are all kind of like dialed up reality.
With the CGI layover, they could smooth and round out the car's edges, add signs of damage, you name it, all without actually damaging or changing the cars. The vehicles ended up looking a little unlike models we have in real life, but close enough to be recognizable in the real world, and cool enough to be coveted by video game enthusiasts.
Impressive.
Adding all the chaos that surrounds the cars during epic chase scenes was also incredibly important to get the Free City world to really feel like a Grand Theft Auto-inspired universe, where there's all kinds of pandemonium. Pyrotechnics, sparks, and mayhem were added to these scenes while the stunt drivers cruised the streets, so they didn't have to deal with any real obstacles. You can see in this scene that some cars they hit aren't really there at all, including this massive pileup. The chase scenes got the action right by filming stunt drivers in front of green screens. They were filmed with a robotic motion-controlled camera, moving on a track to keep things smooth, like when Channing Tatum's character does a slow-mo 360.
You're so hot.
Oh, I know.
Free Guy was shot in Boston, with a few reshoots taking place in LA, while the interiors were built on airport hangars or sound stages. But other cities like Seoul, Tokyo, Seattle, Pittsburgh, and even Christopher Nolan's Gotham City served as inspiration for how the video game world would look. To get everything right, the team actually created Free City twice, first as live-action footage with digital additions, and again as a fully CG environment. They created futuristic, unique, and dilapidated storefronts by using real buildings and overlaying them with CGI to turn them into the unique Free City shops that we see on our screens. Production designer Ethan Tobman said that they did a ton of branding and developed 2 stories of entire blocks with signage that you'd never see in the real world. Different cameras were used to distinguish between Free City and the real world. The video game scenes were shot with a large format camera and spherical lenses with a color palette that was almost animated, while the real life scenes were filmed in a more down-to-earth style with a more restricted color palette.
You're real. And I'm what? I'm what?
You're not.
When the glasses go on, the world becomes even more different. It's like The Truman Show, where the main character doesn't know what's really going on until he's given a way to see it. So there had to be a pretty big distinction between Guy's reality and the player's reality. To accomplish this, there's another layer of VFX creating what the game's players see, with director Shawn Levy taking advantage of the fact that he was
The creator of that world within the world.
These images that appear all around Free City for players are meant to look even more animated and interactive than the Fantasy City does to its NPCs. The team also used different camera techniques when Guy puts on his glasses, like having it suddenly become first person and then filming from behind him, as if a video game player is actually changing their camera perspective.
Oh, that's not good.
The street squeeze scene looks like it could be right out of a superhero movie, which isn't so surprising considering the film's VFX supervisor, Sven Gilberg, also worked on Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame. In this scene, there were some real cars being driven by trained professionals, but for the most part, all the action was compiled together with some incredible VFX. These shots on the streets closing in, the streets crumbling, and cars being flung every which way were all added by the incredibly talented people at Scanline VFX. So don't worry, no stunt drivers were harmed in the making of this scene. The destruction of Free City was also a complicated scene.
Literally, the world can reshape.
It required incredible VFX, but it also required the actors to pretend that it was really being destroyed. Because in reality, all of that destruction was accomplished with some epic CGI that had the city pixelating into a million pieces. Scanline VFX was responsible for the scene, which had the world of Free City literally falling out from underneath its citizens' feet. For the stampede in the city, there were some real actors involved running for their lives. But there were also extra digital renderings of characters added in later to fill out the crowd. As for Guy finally reaching the Life Itself Island, you guessed it, the Green Oasis was entirely animated.
This is Free City. And the people who wear sunglasses are heroes.
Computer animation was also used to create these iconic scenes where players free fall and then glide into Free City. The scenes introduce us to what's really possible in the video game world. Some of the characters, like this guy, coming in like a flying squirrel, are entirely animated, but when characters are shown coming down in parachutes or getting close to the ground, they're really attached to wires on a crane. The crew had quite the complicated setup, prepared to get all these falling and flying scenes just right.
That was every director's dream.
What the Free Guy team did with this film is incredible. They managed to create their own movie world and video game world at the same time, but it almost looked very different. Shawn Levy originally thought it would end up more animated, kinda like Overwatch or Fortnite. Let us know in the comments which CGI scene impressed you most.